Welcome to the Dark History Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Carter. In the depths of the Cold War, the CIA initiated a highly classified operation called Project MK-Ultra. The aim was simple yet audacious: to control the human mind. Their weapon of choice? A potent and little-understood hallucinogen called lysergic acid diethylamide, or LSD. As we delve deeper into the corridor of this clandestine operation, we uncover the astonishing lengths the agency went to in its quest for mind control. In 1953, the CIA, under the directorship of Allen Dulles, began Project MK-Ultra. The initiative stemmed from the CIA's fear of falling behind in psychological warfare, as the US and the Soviet Union vied for global supremacy. The agency began to investigate methods of manipulating the human mind, aiming to exploit the enemy's vulnerabilities or create super spies immune to enemy interrogation. And LSD, discovered by Swiss chemist Albert Hofmann in 1943, soon became their tool of interest. Hofmann had accidentally ingested some of the substance while synthesizing it and reported fantastic visions and an altered state of consciousness. The CIA saw a potential weapon in LSD's disorientating effects and aimed to harness its power for their clandestine operations. But to do so, they needed to understand how LSD affected the human mind, and thus began a series of experiments that would bring the agency into murky moral territory. One of the more infamous initiatives under MK-Ultra was Operation Midnight Climax. This operation saw the CIA setting up brothels in San Francisco and New York, where unsuspecting clients were dosed with LSD and observed behind one-way mirrors. The agency hoped to gain insight into the drug's effects and its potential for manipulation and control. However, the CIA's experiments with LSD were not limited to brothels. They also extended to academic institutions, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. In many cases, subjects were administered LSD without their knowledge or consent, a clear violation of ethical standards. But the agency's interest in LSD was not merely confined to its potential use in warfare or espionage. They also explored its potential therapeutic applications. They funded research into whether LSD could be used to treat alcoholism, depression, and other mental health disorders. As we delve deeper into the CIA's clandestine LSD experiments, we will see a pattern of ethical breaches, a disregard for human rights, and a desperate quest for power in an era of geopolitical tension. We will explore the human stories caught in this web of intrigue and betrayal, and the long shadow these experiments cast on the fields of psychology, medicine, and government oversight. This is the story of the CIA and LSD, the truth behind the acid experiments. In the early 1950s, the Cold War was in full swing. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in an ideological battle, and both nations were desperately seeking any advantage they could find. While the public's attention was focused on the threat of nuclear weapons, behind the scenes, the CIA was exploring a different kind of warfare: psychological manipulation. And the key to their strategy was a little-known substance called LSD. The CIA's fascination with LSD began with a man named Sidney Gottlieb. A chemist by training, Gottlieb was appointed head of the CIA's technical service staff in 1951. He believed that the agency could use drugs to manipulate people's minds and extract information from enemies. Gottlieb was convinced that LSD was the perfect tool for this job. Gottlieb's plan was ambitious and, to many, deeply troubling. He proposed a series of experiments, collectively known as Project MK-Ultra, to explore the effects of LSD on the human mind. The project was approved by the CIA director in 1953, and for the next decade, the agency poured millions of dollars into LSD research. The experiments took many forms. In some cases, Volunteers were given LSD and asked to describe their experiences. In others, unsuspecting subjects were dosed with the drug, their reactions observed and recorded. These covert experiments were conducted in a variety of locations, from universities to mental hospitals, and even in public settings like bars and restaurants. But perhaps the most notorious of these operations was Operation Midnight Climax. The operation involved the establishment of brothels in San Francisco and New York, where unsuspecting clients were dosed with LSD and observed behind one-way mirrors. The agency hoped to gain insight into the drug's effects and its potential for manipulation and control. Yet, despite the CIA's extensive testing, the results of these experiments were inconclusive. The agency found that while LSD could induce powerful hallucinations and alter perception, its effects were too unpredictable to be of practical use. Subjects reacted differently to the drug, and its influence was difficult to control, making it an unreliable tool for espionage or mind control. As the 1960s dawned, the CIA's LSD experiments began to draw scrutiny. Stories of strange happenings and mysterious government projects began to circulate, and the public started to ask questions. In the face of increasing public pressure, the CIA officially terminated Project MK-Ultra in 1963. However, the legacy of the CIA's LSD experiments would continue to reverberate for decades to come. Behind the clandestine operations and the veil of secrecy, the CIA's LSD experiments were not simply the work of a few rogue individuals. They were part of a wider network of power and authority, sanctioned at the highest levels of government. At the helm of these operations was Dr. Sidney Gottlieb, a chemist and the head of the CIA's Technical Services Staff, TSS. Under Gottlieb's direction, the TSS became a hub of covert operations and experiments, many of which involved the use of LSD. Gottlieb was known for his relentless pursuit of mind control techniques, and he saw LSD as a key component in this quest. However, Gottlieb wasn't acting alone. His projects were approved and funded by some of the most powerful figures within the CIA, including the agency's director, Allen Dulles. Dulles, a staunch anti-communist, was deeply invested in the Cold War and saw the potential of mind control techniques as a weapon against the Soviet Union. The LSD experiments were also closely tied to the CIA's broader covert operations. Many of the subjects of these experiments were individuals already under surveillance by the agency, such as suspected communists or foreign agents. This overlap between the LSD experiments and the CIA's surveillance activities created a complex web of secrecy and manipulation, with individuals often unaware of their role within this network. The power structures behind the LSD experiments were not limited to the CIA. Academic institutions and medical facilities across the country were complicit in these operations, providing both the venues and the personnel for the experiments. Many of these institutions were funded by the CIA, often through shell organizations designed to conceal the agency's involvement. Among these was the Society for the Investigation of Human Ecology, a CIA-front organization that funded research into mind control techniques. Through this society, the CIA funneled money into universities and hospitals, effectively turning them into laboratories for their LSD experiments. Yet despite the extensive network of power and authority behind these experiments, the results were far from the decisive victory the CIA had hoped for. The unpredictable nature of LSD, coupled with the ethical and legal complications of the experiments, ultimately led to the termination of Project MK-Ultra. However, the impacts of these experiments, and the power structures that enabled them, would continue to be felt for many years to come. The acid experiments were not a minor operation conducted in the basement of the CIA. This was a vast, nationwide program, with participants ranging from ordinary citizens to the very highest echelons of power. The consequences of these experiments were profound, and their legacy continues to resonate today. One of the most notable aspects of these experiments was the way they blurred the line between voluntary and involuntary participation. Some subjects were fully aware of the nature of the experiments and consented to take part. These included scientists, intellectuals, and even high-ranking CIA officers. Others, however, were not given the choice. These included prisoners, patients in mental hospitals, and unsuspecting civilians who became unwitting participants in the CIA's quest for mind control. Their experiences varied greatly, and many of them suffered severe psychological and physical harm as a result of their involuntary involvement in the experiments. The ethical implications of this kind of experimentation are profound. Yet at the time, the CIA's mind control experiments were conducted with little oversight or accountability. The Cold War mindset, which emphasized the need for secrecy and prioritized national security over individual rights, created a climate in which such experiments could take place. But as the 1960s progressed, public awareness of the CIA's activities began to grow. The counterculture movement, with its emphasis on peace, love, and personal freedom, was diametrically opposed to the authoritarian, secretive nature of the CIA's operations. LSD, which had been weaponized by the CIA, became a symbol of rebellion and personal liberation for the counterculture. By the late 1960s, the CIA's LSD experiments had become a matter of public controversy. Journalists, activists, and politicians began to question the ethics and legality of these operations, leading to a series of investigations and hearings. These investigations revealed the extent of the CIA's activities and the lack of oversight that had allowed them to take place. They also exposed the complicity of universities, hospitals, and other institutions in the CIA's operations. The revelations shocked the public and led to significant changes in the way the CIA and other intelligence agencies operated. Yet, as we will see, the legacy of the CIA's LSD experiments is far from over. The techniques and strategies developed during this period continue to influence the agency's operations today, and the ethical questions raised by these experiments are still relevant. The story of the CIA and LSD is not just a piece of Cold War history, but a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power and the potential for abuse in the name of national security. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, as the public scrutiny intensified, shocking details about the CIA's LSD experiments began to emerge. Reports uncovered the appalling extent of the atrocities committed in the name of research. These were not merely faceless, nameless test subjects, but men and women who lived through harrowing experiences, their lives forever scarred by the intrusion of these ruthless experiments. One such story was that of Frank Olson. Olson was a biochemist working for the Army, unsuspectingly drugged with LSD during a meeting with CIA officials in 1953. Days later, under the influence and tormented by the effects of the drug, Olson plunged to his death from a 13th-floor window. The agency initially covered up their involvement, attributing his death to stress and mental illness. It wasn't until 1975, more than 2 decades later, that the grim truth was revealed, proving that Olson was, in fact, a casualty of the CIA's mind control experiment. However, Olson's case was just the tip of the iceberg. Hundreds of unsuspecting individuals were subjected to similar, if not worse, treatment. The experiments were not limited to adults alone. Theodore Kaczynski, better known as the notorious Unabomber, was reportedly a subject of these mind control experiments during his adolescent years at Harvard University. There are arguments suggesting that the psychological trauma inflicted on him during these trials may have contributed to his later violent behavior. The evidence of these atrocities mounted, leading to an uproar from the public and the media. In 1973, amid mounting pressure, CIA Director Richard Helms ordered all MK-Ultra files destroyed. However, a clerical error spared some 20,000 documents from destruction, providing a chilling glimpse into the operation's depth and breadth. These surviving documents were declassified in the late 1970s, revealing to the world the dark underbelly of the CIA's clandestine operations. The declassified files disclosed how the CIA had conducted these experiments in over 80 institutions, including universities, hospitals, prisons, and pharmaceutical companies. The reach of their operations was vast and invasive, with the agency leaving no stone unturned in their relentless pursuit of mind control. The public outrage that followed these revelations was profound. It wasn't just the violations of human rights that appalled people, but the audacity of an agency that had acted with such wanton disregard for ethical norms and regulations. The fallout was massive, leading to sweeping changes in the CIA's operations, stricter oversight measures, and a significant shift in the public's perception of intelligence agencies. However, the damage had been done. The lives affected could never be fully mended, and the ethical questions raised by these experiments continue to resonate. The CIA's LSD experiments were a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power, of the line that can be crossed when national security is used as a blanket justification for actions that defy the fundamental principles of human rights and dignity. Despite the public outcry and reforms that followed, the CIA's LSD experiments also left another more subtle, yet equally profound legacy: a culture of silence and resistance within the intelligence community. The specter of MK-Ultra hung over the agency, fostering an environment of secrecy that often seemed impenetrable to outside scrutiny. Even after the declassification of the surviving MK-Ultra documents, many believed that the full extent of the program's activities remained hidden. The destruction of most files by Richard Helms further clouded the truth, leaving only fragmentary evidence and a trail of unanswered questions. The CIA had not just attempted to control minds, but had also managed to control the narrative around its own controversial activities. The resistance within the agency was palpable. Many of its members, past and present, were reticent to discuss MK-Ultra, often downplaying its significance or denying its existence altogether. These efforts to suppress the truth were not entirely successful, but they did serve to muddy the waters and make it more difficult for investigators and journalists to get to the bottom of the story. Despite these challenges, there were those who refused to be silenced. A handful of brave survivors and whistleblowers came forward to tell their stories, often at great personal risk. Their testimonies were harrowing, detailing the severe psychological distress and physical harm they had suffered. These first-hand accounts gave a human face to the victims of the LSD experiments, challenging the CIA's efforts to downplay the program's impact. Yet it wasn't just within the CIA that resistance was encountered. The broader societal reaction towards the MK-Ultra revelations was also marked by a troubling ambivalence. While there was widespread outrage, there was also a degree of disbelief and denial. The scale and audacity of the experiments seemed so extreme, so outlandish, that many found it easier to dismiss them as conspiracy theories rather than confront the uncomfortable reality of what their government had sanctioned. This resistance to truth, both within and outside the CIA, underscores the deep-seated challenges that continue to plague efforts to fully uncover and understand the agency's LSD experiments. It's a reminder that the battle for transparency and accountability in intelligence operations is not just about revealing hidden documents, but also about overcoming ingrained cultures of resistance and silence. It is a battle that, even decades after MK-Ultra's termination, is far from over. As the investigations into MK-Ultra continued, A crucial component was the tireless work of journalists and investigative reporters. They were tasked with the mammoth job of sifting through the heavily redacted documents, piecing together the fragmented narrative of the CIA's LSD experiments. Their work was instrumental in bringing the truth to light and keeping the story alive in the face of institutional denial and public skepticism. One such journalist, Seymour Hersh, broke the story of the CIA's illegal domestic spying activities in 1974, a revelation that would ultimately lead to the Church Committee investigations and the unmasking of MK-Ultra. Hersh's tenacity and persistence in uncovering the truth laid the groundwork for a deeper understanding of the extent and impact of the CIA's activities. Meanwhile, investigative reporter John Marks, author of the seminal book The Search for the Manchurian Candidate, took the lead in exposing the details of MK-Ultra, after a Freedom of Information Act request yielded a cache of heavily redacted documents related to the program. Marks's work offered a disturbing glimpse into the dark corners of the intelligence community, revealing the lengths the CIA had gone to in its quest for mind control. These journalists' work was instrumental in casting light on the CIA's activities, yet they faced an uphill battle. The government red tape and institutional resistance they encountered served as a stark reminder of the power structures at play, and the lengths those in power would go to keep the truth hidden. As the investigations continued, it became clear that the CIA's LSD experiments were not the result of a few rogue operatives, but were, in fact, sanctioned at the highest levels of the agency. This revelation only deepened the sense of betrayal felt by the public and the victims of the program. It was a sobering reminder that the pursuit of power and control could lead even the most respected institutions down a dark and dangerous path. Through their relentless pursuit of truth, these journalists helped to reveal the depths of the CIA's deceit. Their work remains a testament to the power of investigative journalism in holding power to account and shining a light on the darkest corners of our society. Their stories serve as a stark reminder of the vital role the free press plays in maintaining the balance of power, and the lengths some will go to silence the truth. Together, they were instrumental in revealing the full scale of the MK-Ultra program and the shocking actions of the CIA. In the wake of the exposure of MK-Ultra, there was a public outcry for accountability and justice. The CIA's actions had not just violated public trust, but also the basic human rights of the individuals subjected to their experiments. Demands for legal repercussions against the agency grew steadily, leading to a series of lawsuits brought forth by victims and their families. One of the most noteworthy cases was that of the family of Dr. Frank Olson, the military scientist who died under suspicious circumstances after being unknowingly dosed with LSD. For 2 decades, Olson's death was officially considered a suicide until the Church Committee's investigations revealed the truth. The Olson family sued the CIA in 1975, leading to an out-of-court settlement and a public apology from President Gerald Ford. Yet the family continued to pursue the truth, and in 2012 they filed another lawsuit, alleging that Olson's death was not a suicide, but a murder orchestrated by the CIA. While the Olson case is the most widely known, it was far from the only legal action taken against the CIA. Several other victims, including a group of former patients from Montreal's Allen Memorial Institute who were subjected to brutal electroshock treatments and drug-induced sleep as part of MK-Ultra, also launched lawsuits against the agency. Despite these legal battles, the CIA was largely shielded from significant legal repercussions, largely due to the classified nature of the information involved and the agency's ability to invoke national security concerns. The aftermath of MK-Ultra also led to significant changes in how the U.S. government oversees and regulates its intelligence agencies. The Church Committee's investigations resulted in a series of recommendations aimed at improving oversight and accountability within the CIA and other intelligence bodies. These included the establishment of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence and the House Permanent Select Committee on Intelligence, both charged with overseeing the U.S. intelligence community. The exposure of MKUltra and the LSD experiments was a watershed moment in American history, leading to a profound shift in public perception of the CIA and the larger intelligence community. It was a stark reminder of the potential for abuse of power and the need for constant vigilance and oversight. The legacy of MKUltra continues to resonate, serving as a powerful testament to the lengths government agencies can go to in the pursuit of power, and the importance of transparency, accountability, and checks and balances in preventing such abuses from happening again. The legacy of MKUltra and the CIA's LSD experiments isn't confined to the realms of government oversight and legal proceedings. The effects of the program reverberated deeply within the cultural and social fabric of America, and indeed the world, influencing everything from the counterculture movements of the 1960s to popular culture and the arts. The CIA's LSD experiments coincided with the rise of the counterculture movement, which was in part defined by its embrace of psychedelic substances, including LSD. Figures such as psychologist Timothy Leary, author Ken Kesey, and many others who were influential in the counterculture movement were introduced to LSD through the CIA's programs. Their experiences with the drug have shaped their work and philosophy, popularizing the use of LSD and other hallucinogenic substances, and contributing to the wider cultural shift of the 1960s. This cultural shift was not without its controversies. The widespread use of LSD and other psychedelics led to a societal debate about drug use and its effects, with critics pointing to the dangers of uncontrolled use and advocates highlighting the potential therapeutic and spiritual benefits. This debate, which was sparked in part by the CIA's LSD experiments, continues to this day, with renewed interest in the potential therapeutic use of psychedelic substances for mental health treatment. In popular culture, the CIA's LSD experiments have often been depicted in films, TV shows, and books, which have both sensationalized and critiqued the agency's actions. These representations have helped to maintain public awareness of the program and its implications, while also contributing to the continued debate about government oversight, individual rights, and the ethical boundaries of scientific experimentation. The impact of MKUltra extends to the field of medical ethics and research standards. In the wake of the revelations about the program, there was a renewed emphasis on the importance of informed consent in medical experiments. The National Commission for the Protection of Human Subjects of Biomedical and Behavioral Research, established in the 1970s, formulated the Belmont Report, which laid out key ethical principles for research involving human subjects. This landmark document, a direct response to the ethical violations of MKUltra, has had a profound impact on the practice of medical and psychological research. In the end, the story of the CIA's LSD experiments serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked power, the importance of ethical standards in research, and the potential for government agencies to overstep their bounds in the name of national security. It's a reminder that vigilance, transparency, and accountability are essential in preventing such abuses in the future. Despite the extensive exploration into MKUltra and its ramifications, many questions still remain. Who were the individuals most deeply impacted by these experiments? How many people suffered long-term effects as a result of involuntary dosing? Were there any survivors who experienced positive outcomes, as unlikely as it seems? And perhaps most importantly, did the CIA fully disclose all relevant information regarding their secret operations? Or are there more hidden chapters yet to be unveiled? The full extent of the CIA's LSD experimentation and its impact may never be entirely known. Due to the agency's clandestine nature, coupled with the widespread destruction of MK-Ultra documents, many aspects of the program remain shrouded in mystery. Some survivors and their families still grapple with the program's aftermath, living with the mental and physical scars inflicted by these unconsenting experiments. The legacy of MK-Ultra has also been felt in the realm of law and policy. The scandal contributed to a more robust framework for the ethical conduct of human experimentation, leading to the creation of institutional review boards and a higher standard for informed consent. Yet the question remains whether these measures are enough to prevent similar abuses from happening in the future. The CIA's LSD experiments have left an indelible mark on the societal psyche, a symbol of the perils of unchecked authority and the disregard for individual autonomy in the name of security or scientific advancement. It serves as a potent reminder that even the most well-intentioned pursuits can lead to profound harm when ethical boundaries are crossed. Yet the story of the CIA and LSD is not just one of victimhood and violation. It is also a testament to the resilience of those who were unwittingly ensnared in the web of MK-Ultra, and the determination of activists, journalists, and scholars who have sought to expose the truth. Their efforts continue to shed light on this dark chapter of American history, ensuring that the lessons from these acid experiments are not forgotten. In reflecting on the CIA's LSD experiments, it's important to consider both the historical context and its contemporary relevance. MK-Ultra serves as a stark reminder of a time when individual rights were compromised under the guise of national security. But it also prompts a broader reflection on the ongoing challenges of balancing the pursuit of knowledge, the need for security, and the imperative of upholding human rights and dignity. As the debate around the ethical use of psychedelic substances continues, the legacy of MK-Ultra remains a crucial reference point for discussions on medical ethics, government oversight, and the rights of individuals. Thanks for listening. This has been the Dark History Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to support the show, subscribe to the Forbidden Knowledge Network on Patreon. Subscribe now.